Well, Adam, I mean, what do you want to say to Geraldo? He called you a dick. Do you have a response?
Show he's able to lie over and over. Why should I be bound by some decorum that my opponents aren't bound by? Do you see what I'm saying? It's not the 80s anymore. It's not even 2010 anymore. We are in a new era where we are playing in a reciprocal manner. So I'm not playing the games where I have to be nice.
You can always tell when the old guard starts losing control, because suddenly the debate stops being about facts and starts being about tone. Welcome back to Pillarism. Tonight we're diving into a chaotic Piers Morgan panel where 23-year-old Adam Mockler completely rattles the establishment, clashes with Geraldo Rivera, and forces the entire panel into meltdown mode. What starts as a debate over war and media narratives quickly turns into a generational showdown over power, decorum, and who gets to control the conversation. If you're here for sharp, no-spin political analysis, make sure you like and subscribe. Let's get into it.
Let me bring in Adam Mockler. Welcome to Uncensored, Adam. You've obviously hit the headlines in the last few days. For those who haven't seen it, I think it's up there with my Russell Brand clip as the two most memed and republished clips of the week. So let's take a look at your one. This is you with Scott Jennings at CNN.
I mean, honestly, they have been at war with us for 47 years.
We all know that Scott Jennings is more than happy to defend a war with a country that starts with the letters IRA that we are currently failing, that is going to put us trillions and trillions of dollars more in debt. I was only a few years old while you were in the administration defending prior endless wars. Now this war is failing.
8 weeks is endless to you?
Okay, you said it was going to be 4 to 6 weeks.
You have the attention span of a gnat?
Homie, I debated you on TV 4 to 6 weeks ago, and you said we were weeks away from it. Now you're making condescending remarks because you can't defend the fact that this war is not going your way. Wait, one more time.
Not going your way.
One political concession. Name one political concession.
Whoa,
honestly, I'm not going to have this guy's
everybody,
in my face.
Everybody, hang tight.
Honestly.
Okay. No, everybody, calm down. Okay.
Now, as somebody who was repeatedly actually manhandled by Russell Brand, I think your manhandling was at least a little bit removed. There was daylight between your arms and Scott Jennings. But what was interesting about the exchange to me was not that he was not entitled to get annoyed with the way you were gesticulating. I probably would have done too. But I've not seen him that rattled. Scott Jennings is normally ice cool on that panel show. I watch it a lot. I think he's a really interesting commentator for the right on CNN. It's an unusual beast. They don't have many of them. And he holds his own often against 3 or 4 people. And on this occasion, Geraldo was also on the panel, I noted. And we'll come to Geraldo for his view of it in a minute. But I haven't seen Scott Jennings react like that to anybody. And that, to me, in the same way that I'm seeing with Donald Trump's slightly erratic and, quite angry and testy social media activity in the last few weeks, it just looks to me like people that have gone all in on this war in Iran, now it's not playing out in any way that they predicted or told everybody that it was going to play out. They're getting testy. They're getting quite angry about it, which is a natural human reaction, but is increasingly obvious. And I thought your exchange with Scott was indicative of that. What did you think?
I don't want to take away from the point that I was making in the question that I was asking in that moment, because I have sat on panel after panel after panel with Scott Jennings as he lies about this war, not bound by any facts whatsoever, as he makes failed predictions, not bound by any timelines whatsoever, and as he condescends and trolls and provokes everyone else on the panel. I mean, even in the same panel, he made fun of my bedtime like 5 minutes earlier. So this is a man that's not bound by any facts or timelines or rules. So I said, I'm not going to be bound by rules that my opponent is not playing it. So you can say that I was gesticulating a bit too much. That's a fair criticism, but he could have politely asked me to tone it down. That is not what he did. He snapped because he realized he does not have an answer to the simple question, name one political concession we've gotten from Iran 60 days into this war. We've had moving, shifting timelines, shifting objectives for this war. They've been lowering the threshold for what victory is considered as. And just because I asked the question of, hey, what concessions have we gotten, that pisses him off. We've seen billions of dollars spent. We saw dozens of people, thousands of people in Iran have died, tens of thousands, but we saw over a dozen U.S. soldiers die. So I'm going to continue to ask this very same question. What political concessions have we gotten from Iran 60 days into this war? The answer is absolutely none, and he knows the answer is none. That's why he freaked out.
Yeah, I think it's a perfectly
and don't
reasonable...
apologize.
No,
don't apologize for your
I don't think you
gesturing.
should be apologising. No, I mean,
yeah.
Let me bring Geraldo in firstly, because Geraldo, you were on the panel. I want to play your reaction on News Nation to what you saw on that panel.
The kid was a dick. I mean, he really smart, eloquent.
had his argument together, had obviously debated Scott before, and he was really being a dick. I mean, it was shut up, go out and get some life experience.
How many different...
I wasn't sure if you were talking about Chris Cuomo there, actually, Geraldo. I had to clarify you were talking actually about Adam Mockler. Now,
you still think so?
Well, Adam, I mean, what do you want to say to Geraldo? He called you a dick. You have a response?
Yeah, it's not a dick to try to force a critical question and try to force the conversation to where the American people want it. Geraldo, you were there when Scott made fun of my bedtime 5 minutes earlier. Again, this is somebody not bound by any rules whatsoever on this show. He's able to lie over and over. Why should I be bound by some decorum that my opponents aren't bound by? Do you see what I'm saying? It's not the 80s anymore. It's not even 2010 anymore. We are in a new era where we are playing in a reciprocal manner. So I'm not playing the games where I have to be nice. And regarding life experience, really quickly, you have a whole life of experience and you're on the same panels as me. We're on the same shows. We have a show last week. We have a show today. So life experience, what has it gotten you? I don't know.
All right, Geraldo, your life experience has got you nowhere, says the young dick.
Well, that's right. It's got me a career that's lasted 56 years so far and counting, and aside from 10 Emmys and a few other trinkets.
And now you're on the same panels
Adam, listen, don't be a wise ass, okay? I said to you in the commercial break that immediately followed your confrontation with Scott that I thought that you made some good points. The problem is that you can be very obnoxious in your presentation. Now, sometimes being obnoxious can lead to a whole career, but I advise you strongly, because you're a smart kid and you obviously prepared, for the debate. Stick to that. Stick to the substance, because I think that you do have a future. In terms of Scott Jennings, I like Scott very much. I didn't know him before the CNN experience. It was fun talking to him in the green room before the show, and then see the confrontation, this spontaneous combustion. I was surprised. I was surprised by the fact that Scott reacted as he did. But then, just listening to Adam, he can be very grating, and sometimes that works. I remember Morton Downey and a bunch of others from daytime TV and so forth. But I strongly advise you to stick to the substance, because you can, as I indicated in the commercial break following the confrontation, you can be a voice for a generation that has so far been unable to penetrate into the mainstream media. That's my.
This is so indicative of the double standards that we see all throughout the media. I mean, you went on that whole rant, but you didn't mention that Scott Jennings made fun of my bedtime or whatever. Not that I care, but he's the one who has an obnoxious air.
What did he say about your bedtime? I missed that.
So I asked him a question 5 minutes before. I said, hey, what concession has Iran gotten? And he says, aren't you a little bit up past your bedtime or something? He started with the condescending jabs.
To be fair, Adam, you are literally beaming into the show from your bedroom.
It's a hotel room. I'm currently at a hotel room. But, I mean, either way.
It's not the best way to refute the suggestion that it's past your bedtime.
What are you talking about? I'm in a hotel room in New York because I have CNN again tonight.
Adam, it's a joke. You're reacting a bit like Scott did the other day. So take a chill pill. You happen to have a bed behind you as you're refuting the charge that it's past your bedtime. I'm just making a joke.
It's a good joke. One final thing. I'm 23. Maybe my youthful arrogance will drop with time, but there's no excuse for Scott Jennings to be on air all the time, making remarks at everybody else. And then the moment somebody gives it back, he can dish it, but he can't take it. The moment somebody tries to force the question, what political concession have we gotten from Iran? He gets worked up. So, yeah.
Well, okay. But Anna, on a sort of slightly wider point here, it's very interesting to me. I just interviewed Megyn Kelly for 20 minutes at the start of this show. And I could have been talking to you about some of these issues, right? Same with Tucker Carlson. A lot of you have blended now into a weird family of people who have a lot of agreement about a lot of things. Iran, the influence of Israel, Donald Trump and his mistake as you see it, and so on. Did you think a time would come when you would be siding rhetorically on these big, big issues with so many who are on the conservative right? And what does that tell you about the state of the conservative right when you've got people like Mark Levin saying Tucker's mentally ill, everyone trashing Candace Owens and her trashing everybody else? There is a real split going on the conservative right. And there's you firmly on the left as you've always been, but now siding rhetorically, to me, it seems, on these big issues with people that would historically have been the complete opposite to you.
I'm going to get back to your question in just one second, but I have to say the debate about tone is the exact type of distraction that Zionists are hoping for, so you don't actually debate the substance. Mockler, your tone was fine. Your hand was nowhere near his face. You have no reason to apologize. The reason why they're attacking your tone is because they can't attack your substance. Now, moving on to Pierce's question.
Somehow blame Zionists for that? That's mental illness, but okay.
Yeah. Okay, right. You're calling me mentally ill? Do you want to go there?
What does blaming Zionists have to do with...
I'm not talking to you. I'm going to answer Pierce's question calmly and not let you bait me because that's what you guys do.
I hope you can.
Pierce, to answer your question, I think that right now it's not really a question of left versus right on this issue. It's a question of good versus evil, America first versus a foreign country first. And right now, this war is something that, as Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel, has said repeatedly, has been a dream of his for decades. And he finally got his dream to the detriment of the American people, since we're the ones paying for this war. We're the ones who lost 13 soldiers as a result of this war, and we shouldn't be fighting it. And so I think Tucker, I think Megyn Kelly, I think people like me and Cenk, regardless of our political views overall, look at this war, look at the undue influence of Israel over our government and foreign policy, and we have a problem with that. We are America first. We have some very real problems here within our own borders that are not being addressed at all, even though President Trump alleged that he was going to address those issues. And in fact, the very issues that people voted for him on, including doing something about affordability, he has only made worse by agreeing to enter this war. So I think that's what's going on, why there's a little bit of agreement when it comes to big picture issues, like whether or not our leadership is America first, whether or not our foreign policy is serving us, and whether or not we really want to continue this alliance with a country that has only sucked our resources and forced us into wars that we shouldn't be fighting.
Okay, Deborah Lee, what was the point you were trying to make?
At the beginning, she referenced that this is Zionist distraction to talk about tone. And I was just pointing out that to blame Zionists for pointing out the tone when this was a very viral interaction between Adam and Scott, a lot of people had a lot of opinions. That's the kind of mental illness that we ascribe to anti-Semitism, where it rots your brain and you start seeing these connections where they come from nowhere. And something very worth mentioning, as somebody who's very passionate about making sure that Republicans win in this country for the midterms, if we stop this war tomorrow, that would really not move the needle for the Republican Party in terms of the midterms. And the biggest reason is because we have these rogue liberal activist judges who consistently overturn every single win from the Trump administration. And so until we rein back these activist judges in our country and assure that we can actually have the long-lasting wins that we voted for lasting in this country, that is the biggest challenge for the midterms. Americans are not feeling the wins.
I just want to come to you, Curtis, if I may, about something completely different, because there was another big event last week where my king and queen came to your great country. And you said this.
Oh, total agreement with him. Because I was in India. This was about 15 years ago, and I met with historians there. They stole all the artifacts, not just in India, all over the world. They refused to give it back. So they have the king and the queen, you know, the royalty. They're a bunch of deadbeats, slackers, the worst welfare cheats in the world. So the countries ask, you know, could we have our artifacts back? And they say no. Meantime, India, they had 2 million volunteers join the king's army in World War II to defend the crown. 100,000 casualties, many more injured. I think the least that the royal family, the royal stiffs could do is not stiff the Indian people, but they do it, and they don't think twice about it. And they should have met with the Epstein victims.
So a stinging attack on my monarch and his wife there. This is about the Koh-i-Noor diamond, which is an ongoing argument and dispute. It dates back several hundred years, and I'm not going to get into that particular argument. But when you call King Charles a slacker, Curtis, I just wanted to point something out to you. King Charles is 77. I believe you're a very robust 72. So he's 5 years older than you. He was diagnosed with cancer in February 2024 and is still having regular treatment for this cancer. And yet in 2025, he conducted 390 solo engagements and 488 solo and joint engagements. Slacker? Really? My king? A slacker? He's the hardest working cancer patient in the world.
Let me get the small violin out. I had stage 4 prostate cancer. I was shot 5 times with hollow point bullets on the orders of the Gottis to the Gambinos. I'm out there every day. The difference is when your king and your queen came to lay the flowers at the memorial at 9/11, which was good, not only for all the Americans lost, 3,000, but the 69 Brits. Just a block away is the memorial to the Irish famine, where your royalty was responsible for the killing of 1 million Irish. Up the rebels, Easter Rising, John Conley, your Queen Victoria did this, and your royalty never apologized for the death of 1 million Irish. Your royalty has a lot to apologize for.
And do your leaders have a blameless record going back 250 years, Curtis? Or should I start slinging my arrows back your way for some of the transgressions of the past?
No, you can. You can. Because I don't believe in idolatry. I question authority. I am a Republican who constantly questions the authority of Donald Trump. You see, here in America, we have total free speech, and the answer to hate speech is more free speech. But in England, you don't have complete free speech, and you know what I'm talking about, Piers.
Well, we have issues with free speech, particularly on social media, which I'm very concerned about. I agree with you. You know, we've had some ridiculous cases where people have cracked jokes, inappropriate, tasteless jokes on social media, and then get arrested by 5 armed policemen at Heathrow Airport and charged with crimes. It's ridiculous.
Can I reach my hands across the pond? You keep the king and the queen there. We'll keep Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse here because that's your Disney World.
What makes this panel so fascinating isn't just the chaos, it's what the chaos reveals. Because underneath all the interruptions, jokes, accusations, and tone policing, there's a very clear power struggle happening in real time. Not just left versus right, not even old media versus new media. It's something deeper than that. It's a fight over who still gets to control the terms of public debate. For decades, mainstream political panels operated on an unwritten hierarchy. Younger commentators, outsiders, or independent voices were expected to enter cautiously, speak politely, respect the serious people, and stay within the boundaries established by legacy media personalities. You could disagree, but only in the approved format. And what you're watching here is that structure breaking down. Adam Mockler doesn't really care about the old rules. That's why the reaction is so intense, because once someone refuses to accept the traditional hierarchy, the conversation immediately shifts away from substance and toward behavior, attitude, presentation, decorum, anything except the actual argument being made. Notice how quickly the focus turns into, "You're obnoxious. You're disrespectful. You're too aggressive." But very little time is spent answering the core question he kept repeating. That's important, because whether you agree with Mockler's style or not, the panel's response unintentionally proves part of his argument. The moment someone aggressively challenges the narrative framework, instead of politely participating inside it, the system reacts defensively. And that's not unique to this panel. You see it across modern media. Legacy institutions increasingly struggle with personalities who grew up in the internet era, an era where authority is constantly questioned, clips go viral instantly, and audiences care less about credentials and more about who sounds authentic under pressure. That's why the generational tension here feels so sharp. Geraldo Rivera appeals to experience, longevity, and institutional credibility. Mockler appeals to confrontation, directness, and refusing to defer automatically to establishment figures. Those are fundamentally different media philosophies colliding head-on. And honestly, that collision is reshaping political discourse in real time. There's also another layer that matters: reciprocity. One of the most revealing lines in this entire exchange is the idea that people are no longer willing to play nice while feeling like the other side operates without restraint. That mindset is becoming increasingly dominant across politics, media, and online culture. Everyone feels the rules are uneven. Everyone feels the standards only apply selectively. And once people stop believing the system is neutral, escalation becomes inevitable. That's the environment this panel reflects. Not civility, not consensus, escalation. And whether that ultimately improves political discourse or completely destroys it is still an open question. But one thing is undeniable: the old format is losing its grip. Audiences today are drawn toward confrontation, authenticity, and unscripted moments where polished media training breaks down and people reveal what they actually think under pressure. That's why clips like this spread so fast. Because viewers aren't just watching a debate anymore. They're watching the collapse of an old media culture that increasingly struggles to contain the new one replacing it. If you want political analysis that goes beyond the shouting and actually breaks down the deeper shifts happening underneath these viral moments, make sure you subscribe to Pillarism, like the video, and share it with someone who wants clarity instead of performance.